This is just a few minutes late, about 4 to 5 minutes past the 2040 GMT time that we have as the time for the broadcast of this particular edition of the Khoodeelaar television channel, being broadcast under the banner of the Baby Angel Geronimo editions. Baby Angel Geronimo is a New Zealand born alpaca. He's a member of the wider family of camels or camelids. And Baby Angel Geronimo was a mischievous boy when he was growing up. He was New Zealand. And his human mum, Leonie Walker, still remembers him as the mischief making boy, and she regrets the fact that she had let him go to England. Now, Baby Angel Geronimo is the name that is the banner of the unique world exclusive witness to the depravity, the badness, the wrongness being done by the various decision makers in the state of the United Kingdom. And Baby Angel Geronimo is the unique witness. All facets of the depravity, of the corruption, criminality, badness, wrongness to be found in the institutions and the individuals which ethic. So, Baby Angel Geronimo is unique in many other ways, and we are running this program because of the uniqueness and the quality and the moral, ethical, spiritual, intellectual, evidential relevance and centrality in the observation of what is going on in the declining, corrupt, criminally infested state of the United Kingdom. If we look at the latest news items starting in the afternoon of today, Wednesday, the 26th of July 2023, what is called the running orders. The running orders means that the items that are arranged in order of broadcast by radio and television programs, news and factual programs. The running orders today in the afternoon have been heightened in focusing attention on this woman, ALISON ROSE, who has been hounded and harassed by the nasties by the Frankenstein, Farage, and his colluders in the Sun, the Scum, in the Daily Mail, in the Daily Express that has been left there by the crook, the corrupt Beaverbrook, who came from Canada. Now, of course, it is a contradictory statement to say that anyone like Beaverbrook came from Canada. They couldn't have. They are the murderers, the descendants of murderers of the original nations of the people that inhabited the land that is now called Canada. So the Canadians are in power because they massacred the original nations, as did the ones their counterparts in right across the so-called, notice this, Latin America, Argentina, Brazil, the biggest single country in there, and the ruling juntas and the ruling cultures are of course dictated by the white racists that massacred the local people in what is now Latin America, South America. So the baby angel Geronimo was born in New Zealand, which is similarly, and Leonie Walker must be a descendant of the murderers. But we are short circuiting and bringing this commentary to today's contemporary situation on the assumption that the underlying preamble of the commentary being that it will be understood that New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, South America, Canada, Latin America, and the USA, as we know them today, are controlled by the descendants of the murderers and the massacres and the genocides. And it is absolutely pivotal that because these criminals are criminals' descendants, they created the atmosphere. They created the atmosphere through the UK department, central government department called DEFRA, where they created the hostility, the hostile environment, intentionally created the hostile environment in order to make lives of people and persons and creatures like baby angel Geronimo as unbearable, as difficult, as possible. So, therefore, all the elements of injustice, cruelty, lack of compassion are contained in everything that these criminals have done against baby angel Geronimo. Demonized him, conspired to tell tales against him. So that is why baby angel Geronimo is the ideal personification, witness to all the badness and bad things that the state of United Kingdom does and do and is doing and will continue to do. What they have done to Alison Rose is a tip of the iceberg, is typical harassment and hounding. I mean, Rishi Sunak, of course, is a stooge. And the stooge Sunak has colluded, actively colluded in the last 1 week, let's say, in the continuing fabrication of various tales to discredit the individual Alison Rose, to discredit anyone else in the existing banking bureaucracies that they could identify as part of the narrative they have been bent on running to use this as a pretext to reinstall the shaitan, the evil personification, nasty Dracula, Frankenstein, Nigel Farage. Of course, as everything contained in the Holy Quran is vindicated, innal batila kana zahuka, falsehood, innal batila kana zahuka, falsehood is bound to perish. And the drama of the last 3 days in the front pages, center pages of the Murdoch owned, Dottie Digger owned scum and the Daily Mail and this Daily Express, which has got, in terms of resource, it has got less access to resource than the so called commercial rivals, the Daily Mail and the Sun. But these hyperactive, overhyped creation of the image of the nasty Nigel Farage as an innocent victim of biased banking bureaucracy. This has been worked up intentionally, and this will be exposed as having been intentionally worked up, and it will go just like the self confessed racist and Muslim hating, apartheid born Matthew Paris has been forced to confess in his column in the Times, in the Murdoch Times, I think in February 2023, that Boris Johnson has become the dogmas on Britain's pavement. So it is Nigel Nasty Farage's turn. After he has hounded ALISON ROSE and got her sacked, got her resigned, and got himself looking like a very satisfied Dracula in the images that are in circulation today from Fleet Street and in Fleet Street and through Fleet Street. In time, sooner than he may think, other elements will come to the fore, showing that this was far, far, far from the truth. That is to say, that far from being the innocent victim of prejudice based on the banking bureaucracies, the careerists' hostility to Nigel Farage's politics, there has been another agenda. And that will be only a matter of time before it becomes known. So we said, Batila kana zahuka. The shaitan Boris Johnson has been reduced to a sideshow. Can you believe that? This shaitan Boris Johnson hounded May out of the office, out of the position of the leader of the Conservative Party and out of the office of Prime Minister because he couldn't get his gratification in, so he had to get her out. And he had hardly any space left for any even question about his criminality and propensity to tell lies and all the rest of it. And he was given the unprecedented permanent expression. as spoken by the corrupt BBC Politico that is no longer on the screen as far as I can see. Norman Sheet. Norman Sheet would say every other paragraph about the liar Johnson, but he's a winner. Fuck him. He's a dog mess. So what is going to happen with Nigel Nasty Farage is that he's going to get exposed. And another exclusive thing that we can share is this. For the last 10 years or more, or let's say the last 10 years of the European Union membership, the MEP that Nasty Farage was a member of the European Union and he was called member of the European Union means MEP. For the last 10 years of his period in that position, Nasty Dracula, Frankenstein Farage was the target of legitimate legal inquiries by the European Union. And the inquiries were based on the fact that Farage had stolen money under various pretexts that he used, under expenses and so on. And it is our world exclusive assertion. Nobody else is saying that. It is the Khoodeelaar campaign's world exclusive assertion that one of the reasons why Nigel Nasty Farage had to undermine the European Union was because they were almost catching up with him. For all kinds of other reasons, the people who are still part of the bureaucracy of the European Union, they have not come out publicly condemning Nigel Nasty Farage's personal evil motivation for the agenda to destroy the European Union. There have been various other kind of disguises, like his claim that when he was setting up the UK Independence Party, UKIP, etc., he wasn't motivated by anything like evading the liability for the theft that he had actually perpetrated already. Now, let me add also in context and in fairness that the former so called leader of the Labour Party, Neil Kinnock, was a crook. And I have been saying that he is a crook, he has been a crook. And so is Peter Mandelson. Remember when Belair was preparing for entering number 10 Downing Street in the 1990s, Belair had a group of thugs that helped him, and the thugs included Peter Mandelson and a liar star, Alistair, I call him a liar star, Campbell, the fascist. And these people seriously undermined the democratic vigor that should have been asserted before Blair was allowed to get into number 10 Downing Street. The fact that the vigor was not asserted in the 1990s shows that the Labour Party was already dead politically, ideologically. And the piece in the Communist CPGB Morning Scar, byline to one of George Galloway's so called advisors, X, a mysterious and offensively racist agent, agent of racists, Kevin Obandan. Now, Obandan overrates himself as a socialist commentator. Fuck him. All of them, including Obandan, got fucked up. And they fucked up when they tried in Newham in 2006 to field the so called respect candidates for election as councillors at the 2006 council election. They found out that they didn't have any real support among the people, the electors in Newham. The electors in Newham had all kinds of other shortcomings. But one thing they got right was that George Gate Galloway Robin Wales. Remember in the 2010 election, in the run up to the 2010 general election, George Gate Galloway overhyped his being a Scotsman. And he overhyped the fact that the contest between him and Jim Fitzpatrick was a contest between two Scotsmen. Now, I mean, any study of the demography in both Tower Hamlets and in Newham is bound to confirm that the thing called Scotsman might have been of relevance somewhere else, but they didn't actually constitute any mentionable aspect of the demography in either Tower Hamlets or in Newham, or indeed in the case of the 2012 by election stunt that George Galloway overrated himself for winning. In Bradford West, there was no Scottish factor there at all. So the political journey that George Galloway whatsoever. I mean, all the issues that he has over the years kind of claimed to have been a supporter of are all gone. He's not. He's not around in any significant political way anywhere in defending the communities in Tower Hamlets, let alone in Newham, let alone in Bradford West. And when Galloway stood for the second time, I think. No, let's go back to the Bradford West and when he first stood for the election, the by election. Somebody who must have been a complete and utter arsehole and racist moron conjured up the scenario whereby Galloway was being compared with some of the fighting African origin opponents of racism in the USA. Now, none of the people that were seen closely with Gate Galloway for the best part of the period 2005 to 2010 in Tower Hamlets, none of the people that were seen with him constantly and regularly was a Bangladeshi or as a Muslim. They were all white people, and the only reason why they were there, one of the reasons why they were there, was that they could get together and be entertained by Ajmal Hussain in his restaurant. Other than that, they had no contacts with even Ajmal Hussain in real substance. And as Ajmal Hussain told me, within minutes of the ending of the 2010 parliamentary elections, Ajmal Hussain volunteered a long list of expletives against George Gate Galloway, called him all kinds of names, and abused him. I had not asked for that conversation, but it was Ajmal Hussain who offered me the his vituperation, his condemnation, and his contempt for George Galloway. So, what is happening in Tower Hamlets now, as it was happening in 2006? The crooks in the Poplar HARCA are in the process of being allowed the council housing stock that was given to the crooks in the Tower Hamlets community housing. And when this was happening in the original kind of stage, say between 2005 to 2006, 2004 and 2006, because remember it was about 2004 that George Galloway suddenly materialized after having been given the court ruling against the Daily Telegraph. And he was put on display as the revolutionary at a location in the Mile End Road. So let's say it's 2004. To be on the safe side, 2004 and 5. And Galloway's main kind of supporters and his admirers, they were either SWP wonkers or non SWP wonking other white races. There was not one single Asian, African, or Muslim speaker when they staged the display exhibited George Git Galloway as the rescuer saviors of the people of Bethnal Green and Bow. So, what I'm saying about Galloway is that he has disappeared. Of course, he has not disappeared because he is physically there and he is spewing things, and he is now praising the Chinese, and he is now with his fourth wife, or I have to check that. I think it's a fourth wife. Very telling, isn't it? I mean, the way he has organized his marriages have coincided with his political degeneration. And with the degeneration, George Galloway has discredited himself, and he has discredited those people who, in good faith in the East End of London, gave him the benefit of the doubt at the time, but will not give him the benefit of the doubt anymore. He cannot do the same tricks in Bradford West, in Bethnal Green, in Poplar and Limehouse. So where is he now? He tried Peterborough and he begged nasty Nigel Farage to give him the spot. Even nasty Nigel Farage told him to fuck off. And here is the man, George Git Galloway, who claims that he was the mother of all the revolutionary parliamentarians. How, how can that be? Nothing he has done, nothing he has done during the period that he was officially enlisted as the MP for Bethnal Green Bow. Nothing that he has left there shows that he could, he was not representing the people, the constituents. And the parasites that he had as his assistants and aides and so on have disappeared as well. I mean, how is it possible that those parasites could be seen as anything but parasites? When at the initial period I tested the awareness level of someone called Bodrul Islam, the ethnic minority, whatever that was being funded, and he was operating from a base in the business development center in the Greater Extreme. I noticed that Badrul Islam used the stupidity to show off to me his appreciation of how seriously important George Galloway was. How did he do that? Well, he said that the communications that we were having were about arranging by him, Badrul Islam that is, an audience with George Galloway. Think about that. Even Brenda, the monarch, never sent any communication, to my knowledge, that elevated her meeting somebody, potentially, as her giving them an audience. Can you believe that? And Badrul Islam, of course, he introduced himself to me. I didn't know because I left Silot long before he was born or whatever. So he comes from an area that is near where I was born. And here was him telling me that the communications he was having with me were about arranging an audience with George Galloway. Can you believe that? Now, Badrul Islam, of course, had no idea that I am the person who in the 1960s, at an open, completely spontaneous, extempore conversation, exposed the then most, quote, charismatic, ambitious politico in all of Pakistan, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. Now, how could he even be expected to understand what went on there? And here was Badrul Islam telling me, decades later, that the references to having a meeting and a chat with George Galloway was about organizing an audience by Galloway granted to me, to be granted to me. Where to begin to condemn this easy? Now, this takes the narrative back to the 1757, which is what we are talking about in this edition, which is that when the general Mir Zafar Ali Khan, abbreviated Mir Zafar, when he was being courted by the crook Robert Clive of the East India Company, with the purpose of him betraying the leader of the region, Nawab Sirajuddaulah. Robert Clive understood, he must have understood the DNA weaknesses, the congenital weaknesses as is known, he betrayed the Nawab. Mir Zafar Ali Khan was the general, the chief of the army, and he was betraying his leader. He's betraying the country. How could he do that? And a completely ignorant, corrupt, contemptible Robert Clive, how could he? He could not even dream of from Mirza and the others. So what I'm talking about is that what happened in the last, let's say, 30 years of the British imperialists during the 1930s, 1920s, 30s, was that M.K. Gandhi, Mahatma Karamchand Gandhi, well, Mahatma is the additional kind of name later. It's actually Mohanlal. So M.K. Gandhi is Mohanlal, not Mahatma. Mohanlal Karamchand Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru and his father before him, these people conspired. Karamchand Gandhi and the Nehrus conspired against Subhash Bose. Now, Subhash was not a Hindu nationalist, he was an Indian nationalist, by which he meant, and he did mean, and will be understood forever to have meant the people of all faiths and no faiths in the subcontinent. Not only was he fundamentally very fit and proper future for the subcontinent after the British would leave or be defeated. Subhash Bose was also going to be vindicated by all the other things that he didn't know about, but things that were happening against his political strategy among the ones that the British were encouraging. The British were openly encouraging Mohanlal Karamchand Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru, and before him Motilal, Nehru's father. So much so that Subhash Bose never ever got a chance actually to mobilize the other people in the subcontinent that he could have mobilized and could have actually got together politically, not militarily, politically to defeat the conspiracies and the plots being hatched by the British, Mountbatten and others, and nor the Nehrus and M.K. Gandhi. Anyone who says that Mohanlal Karamchand Gandhi was the great kind of spiritual leader, of course, doesn't know what was happening and doesn't know what he was like. Subhash Bose never did anything, never did anything during his period to harm, like as rivals, the political chances of Nehru or of Mohanlal Gandhi. And of course, he was not competing with Jinnah because Jinnah was on a different level altogether. But the fact that there were these three tendencies, the three movements, the three streams, if you like. One was Subhash Bose, one was the Muslim League, and the other, of course, the humanitarian Gandhi and the Nehrus. And the British decided to capitalize the Nehrus, weaponize Nehrus and Gandhi, and give them the maximum support, which is what they did at every stage. As I have said, and as not just me, I mean, it is the record, they went openly, they went, just like Winston Churchill did ask his only son's wife, Pamela, to become a prostitute and sleep with as many influential Americans as she could manage so that she could influence them to support Churchill, and Churchill could then use the information to influence the then reluctant American president to give more support to the efforts that Churchill was claiming to be organizing against the Nazis. So Pamela was sleeping with influential Americans with the active encouragement of her husband's father, Winston Churchill. Over in India, in the subcontinent, Mountbatten was encouraging his wife Edwina to sleep with Jawaharlal Nehru. So that they could influence Nehru to come to a kind of deal that would suit the departing, would be soon to depart the British imperialists. Now, today's news, by today I mean the 26th of July 2023, is that the father in law of Rishi Sunak, the man that founded the IT outfit in India, Infosys, is mentioned with reference to the 500 million pound that the British public are expected to pay to the Tata company, apparently because Tata don't have the money. And in the same piece, it says that the company actually made worldwide 6 billion pounds worth of profits in the last year. Think about that. A company or a conglomerate that has got 6 billion pounds of income or profit is being lined up to be helped with half a billion pounds of ordinary British people's money. Now, if you can take this narrative back through the last 80 years, let's say, and you can see why Mountbatten was encouraging his wife, Edwina, to sleep with Jawaharlal Nehru because they thought that India, economically, post 1947 or post, let's say, withdrawal, offered them a better continuity as a different version of colonialism. And that is what has been happening. It's the same with the various series of deals that Boris Johnson tried to make with Narendra Modi, and Sunak has been following Boris Johnson, contrary to whatever denials they may issue on the record, that the British immigration policy is being adjusted to facilitate Indian students to enjoy immigration facilities and access that are not available to any other nationals. So it's continuing on every level. And where is that item that I am referring to about Rishi Sunak's father-in-law, the Infosys founder? I will come to that shortly if I can spot it, if I can reach it. This is the Infosys item that I'm going to find, hopefully, and the Tata, the company, Tata company. So, the first item on the new issue of Private Eye, which is issue number 1603, dated 28th of July to 10th of August 2023. It's officially published on the 28th, but unofficially it's available earlier today in the selected, let's say, news outlets, not everywhere. So the first item in Private Eye's political cover on page 7, which is where it starts, reads as follows. Now, this is a sentence that has been written with irony, of course. Could there be a needier or more deserving cause for the cash strapped post Brexit government, that is the post Brexit government of the United Kingdom, to hand a reported £500 million subsidy to then Indian conglomerate Tata Group, owner of Jaguar Land Rover, for a new gigafactory battery maker in Somerset. Last year, Tata made global profits of more than £6 billion through businesses from steel, motors, chemicals, and telecoms to consultancy. But when the going gets tough somewhere, as thousands of steel workers from Port Talbot to Teesside over the past decade can attest, Tata isn't afraid to cut its local losses and slash jobs or sell up to speculators. What Prime Minister Rishi Sunak called a
One sec. I found this on the web.
What Prime Minister Rishi Sunak called a testament to our car manufacturing industry and its skilled workers, that is within quotes, will, however, meet with his father in law's approval. Tata chairman emeritus Ratan Tata, pronounced Narayana Murthy, that is the name of the father in law of Rishi Sunak, father of Sunak's wife, and chairman of Indian IT company Infosys, a great friend. So Ratan Tata has declared Narayana Murthy a great friend to him, as the letter, that is Narayana Murthy, presented him, that is Tata, with an award in 2020. How good a friend to the British economy Tata will be is less certain. Now, this is an ironic piece, of course, and this is not giving the actual chapter and verse, just throwing the key bits in there. The connection with Tata and the British taxpayers, and the connection between Tata and Rishi Sunak, well, through his wife's father, Narayana Murthy, and the fact that a company, Tata, globally made profits of 6 billion plus last year. And a company that made profits of 6 billion is being lined up to be given rescue money worth £500 million of British money. And Tata the company that has, over the last, let's say, 10 years to more than 10 years, remorselessly, contemptuously sacked ordinary British workers. So you can see that that kind of relationship is not hidden, it's corruption of the British economy, the British financial institutions, and it is done, the perpetration is done by Indian conglomerates, a different version of what they were with the Nehrus. And when M.K. Gandhi, that is Mohanlal Karamchand Gandhi, was asked whether he would support Subhash Bose, the response is not mentionable. So, therefore, the alleged concern, the alleged concern for the human rights of the Uyghurs in China, which is what pops up in the anti Muslim British papers from time to time, when it suits them, they are clearly avoiding commercial and other contracts with the Muslims. There is no connection between the British government or taxpayers funding any Pakistani entrepreneur or conglomerate. Go think about that. There would be real outrage if there was even a suggestion that any Pakistani entrepreneur, because they're Muslim and they are seen as the star opponent to the Hindutva regime that Narendra Modi and Amit Shah have been fronting. When Pakistan was hit by an earthquake some years ago, not recently, the Guardian, which claims to be the voice of non biased, objective reporting and journalism, ignored that item. Earthquake that killed and destroyed huge numbers of people and properties and areas in Pakistan was completely ignored by the Guardian. And where the news of the earthquake in Pakistan, the devastating earthquake in Pakistan, should have appeared in the next print edition of the Guardian, what appeared there? It wasn't about Pakistan earthquake. It was a completely made up story cobbled together with the help of spies, British spies, and other anti Muslim suspects, creating a scenario that China was up to no good. That is what they printed on the front page of the Guardian instead of the story about the devastation that had just been caused by the earthquake across Pakistan. So, we shall be continuing on these themes in due course. This is fact based. What I have read about Tata and Narayan Murthy, father of Akkhata Murthy, is just a tip of the iceberg. There are billions and billions of pounds worth of business to be done in the name of the British public, but to facilitate criminals and conglomerate criminals and crooks in India. There is no sign in any of the papers, in the Telegraph, in the Times, in the Express, in the Mail, in the Scum, in the Guardian, in the Financial Times, of any of the big mega billion corruption that goes on in India. Remember, India is many times demographically the size of the United Kingdom, many times the size of the UK resources, if you like. So there is a lot of corruption to the volume that is many times the size of the equivalent, proportionate, corresponding, if you like, amounts going on in the United Kingdom. So you would expect those events to be covered, published, that is, in reported. But you search and there is nothing. This piece in the time in the new private lie is of course just a tip of the iceberg, as I said, and it is absolutely certain that this item will be taking its time before the Guardian follows it up. And if they follow this, they will do that with all kinds of alternative justifications, justifying why the British should be funding Tata, one of the biggest multinationals in the whole world. So let's check what else we have got there. On the of the expression of regret or the alleged confession by Luthuraman in Tower Hamlets that he is ashamed that there is no woman councillor on his side on Tower Council. Luthuraman has said, according to the My London piece by a reporter, so called local government reporter, that one of the reasons why the efforts that is what Lutheraman claims to have made to attract women to stand as councillors in the name of his party. One of the reasons why they didn't come forward was because they were afraid, they were scared. It doesn't say what they were afraid of, it doesn't say what scared them. What were they scared of? What were they afraid of? So let's see what we can find about that description so that we can go into the actual examination of that. So it's a piece that is dated the 23rd of June 2023, and it's bylined to a person called Ruby Gregory. And this Ruby Gregory is described as local democracy reporter. And let's see what Ruby Gregory actually has said. So I'm just looking for these key words. All right, that this Ruby Gregory quotes Luthroman as saying. Because according to this piece by Ruby Gregory, Luthroman is not mentioned as a condemned, corrupt, self seeking incumbent. And there is no mention whatsoever in the piece about the fact that he was ousted and banned from public office for 5 years. In fact, it refers to him as a statesman. Mr. Rahman said the party, that is the Aspire party, had tried its best to recruit from people from other communities as councillor candidates, but said people couldn't follow through with this due to a number of reasons. He said either they worked in difficult jobs or they worked in public service and they weren't allowed to stand as a councillor. He added, and because of what was going on in the media, in the public domain, it had also scared and discouraged people to stand on our platforms as councillors, but still, I feel ashamed. Now, in order to fully dissect the evidential stupidity, contradiction, and contemptible lack of shame on the part of Luthram the liar, let me say this. I spoke to him. I spoke to him the first time Luthraman as a child was introduced to me. It was in 1980. He was a schoolboy. That is my recollection. He was introduced to me by a group of my students. I was teaching them social responsibility, the various skills to defend the community, etc., etc. And as a surprise encounter at the entrance to the business development center in the Greater X Street, this youth was introduced to me. That was the first time, 1980. And the next thing I knew, at the beginning of the 1990s, when he stages a hocus pocus bogus salute to me as he was entering the toll gate in and he said that, well, I cannot remember the exact words in Siloti, but I can remember the fact that he gave me a what is called calling card. And that calling card had his name and it had the name of the company that he was being named in as being an employee. It was a company described as a solicitor's company. Now remember that was 1993-94, not later than that. I'm mentioning this because when Luthraman was ousted many years later, which is like 10, 20, nearly 30 years later, 25 years later, Richard Morey. Actual number of years so that I'm not getting it wrong. I will not get anything wrong, even if I know that he is a liar and is a shameless liar on my evidence. So 2015 is when he was ousted, and 1994, let's say. So how many years is that? So you take away 4 from 5, and it's 1, and then 11, 9, so 2. So 21 years. 21 years later, the solicitors' disciplinary tribunal began the action against him before they finally de-admitted him, that is, took away his license to practice as a solicitor. 21 years before that, he was telling me that he was working with a company, a solicitor's company. Now, I went away in my way and he went his way. A few days after that, it so happened that I met in the street, I was stopped by the very distressed father of the 11-year-old child Nasima Begum, who had been killed because of the negligence of the London Ambulance Service. Now, I had not known who Nasima Begum was because I had just checked that day's or that week's news, and in the Evening Standard, I found the information reported about this 11-year-old child that the London Ambulance Service had neglected. So when I agreed to help them, one thing occurred to me was that if I could find a practicing licensed law trader who would take my instructions and do the campaigning work based on my work but under their name, because I was not running a practice organization. So I rang Luthraman based on that information on that card that he had given me. And I said, would he take the case? And it would not involve him doing anything. All he had to do was to agree to act as the solicitor on the record. And I would do the main work. I can't remember the length of time that we talked, but it wasn't very long. And Luthurama refused to take that on. And he didn't explain why he was saying that. And I didn't press him. Now, what happened was he could not take that on. But he didn't tell me that. He could not take the case on because he was not a solicitor. Now, having been a very long-standing legal rights advocate for decades, both in the United Kingdom and before I came to the United Kingdom, in other countries, I am astounded. How could he be carrying a calling card where his name is mentioned and the calling card is issued by a company, the solicitors? Why am I saying that? Because he was not a solicitor. He was not a solicitor during the whole of the 90s. And he was not a solicitor even during the first decade of this century. You understand, whoever is watching this, do you understand when I say Luthraman is a liar? That is the kind of lying that is on the record. And this is contained in all the information that has appeared after he was disciplined or he was tried, let's say, by the solicitors disciplinary tribunal. There are the solicitors organization is called the Law Society of England and Wales. But the Law Society of England and Wales has got two operational operational branches. One is the Solicitors Regulation Authority, and the other, which is an extension of the Solicitors Regulation Authority, is called the Solicitors Disciplinary Tribunal. So when the Solicitors Regulation Authority decided to accept Richard Morey's recommendation based on the evidence that Richard Morey had sent to them, they decided to hold a hearing so that if Luthuraman had anything to say in defense of his, or if he had a case, then he would have the opportunity to do that. So they gave a date and they held a kind of hearing. But he didn't appear. Now remember, that was happening, all of that was happening years before the COVID 19 created the distance kind of meetings, etc., etc. And Lutheraman didn't appear. So what did he do? He lost his certificate. Let's check this on the facts. Now, in this document that I am accessing on the sra.org.uk website, which is titled "Tell us whether you accept cookie." That is a that is the cookie side. It says the solicitor, Luthuraman solicitor number 002787, and the document is prosecution, which is dated the 3rd of August 2015. So it took place not long after Richard Morey's ruling, which was on the 23rd of April 2015, which is April, May, then June, then July, just 4 months. And this is what the published details. The This outcome was reached by the SRA decision. The outcome of the solicitor's disciplinary hearing, it's a short statement I'm looking at, but there are details on it. The actual matter was heard on the 18th to 20th of December 2017. And it says Mr. Rahman was struck off the roll. And the solicitor's disciplinary judgment will be available at. Okay, so let's read the beginning of that paragraph. This notification relating to leads to a decision to prosecute before the Solicitor's Disciplinary Tribunal. This is an independent tribunal which reaches its own decision after considering all the evidence, including any evidence put forward by the respondent. The tribunal, that is the Solicitor's Disciplinary Tribunal, had certified that there was a case to answer, and the matter was heard on 18th to 20th of December 2017. Now, why did Luthvaraman lie to me? He could not tell the truth at any time. So let's go to that website, Solicitors Tribunal. And what it says in the actual search is that I put the search term Lutfur, and it is saying that your search yielded no results. And one of the reasons why this is so is because he is no longer on the archives as far as this is concerned, but it can be checked during the working hours. In any case, the point is that Solicitor Disciplinary Tribunal, the details showed that he was not a solicitor when he said he was a solicitor, but that was a different consideration. But he later became solicitor, and the offense which Richard Morey identified, and the offense that Richard Morey asked the solicitors disciplinary tribunal to, or the SRA, to act on Luthuraman, took place after he became a solicitor. That was the relevance. Now, the point is that Luthuraman is a prosecuted and struck off former member of the Law Society solicitor. Yet Ruby Gregory doesn't mention any of that. And she doesn't give any reason why she is not mentioning that. So, therefore, when she says that she is writing under the banner of a local democracy reporter, she is obviously misleading, to put it mildly. So, what I'm going to do is to put publicly a number of questions to not only Ruby Gregory but the others who have been promoting Luthuraman and have been doing so by denying, by hiding the fact that he remains a convicted ex solicitor who was found guilty by the solicitor's disciplinary tribunal, and he was struck off. So, very serious, as serious as this can come. So, why did Ruby Gregory not mention him being ousted, disciplined, and all the rest of it? So, we shall be calling on all the other outstanding items, and we shall be updating those ones in due course in later editions. We bring an end to this one at 1 hour 27 minutes and few seconds at 22:12 hours GMT on Wednesday, the 26th of July 2023.